The year is 2019. The world of arm wrestling holds its breath. At the table, two worlds are on a collision course. On one side, the young, ambitious Italian phenom, Ermes Gasparini. On the other, a true Canadian monster, the unstoppable Matt Mask. This wasn't just a match. It was a clash of youth versus experience, technique versus pure primal strength. The match began, and from the first second, it was a massacre. Matt Mask didn't just compete, he raged. He unleashed a storm of raw, untamed aggression that simply overwhelmed the Italian. Ermes tried to hold, tried to use his technique, tried to find an opening, but he was powerless against the onslaught. 1 round, 2 rounds, the final score, 3-1 for the Canadian. The camera caught the look in Ermes' eyes. It wasn't just disappointment, it was the raw look of humiliation, the pain of being utterly dominated. He was broken, physically and mentally. Anyone else would have quit, deciding they just weren't on that level. But deep inside that crushing defeat, something ignited. A spark. A promise to himself. Ermes Gasparini had lost the battle, but right there at his lowest point, he started planning to win the war. The man who returned to Italy was not the same one who had left. The flight home was a silent chamber of reflection. He didn't listen to music. He listened to the echoes of the match, the sickening thud of his hand hitting the pad, replaying over and over in his mind. When he finally stood in front of his own mirror, he didn't see an athlete. He saw a project that had failed. He saw flawed engineering and a weak foundation. And in that moment, he made a decision. The old Ermes Gasparini, the one who lost to Matt Mask, was dead. He would be the architect and the builder of a new one. This wasn't going to be a simple case of training harder. This was a complete demolition and reconstruction. His home transformed. The living room became a war room. He had a whiteboard covered in notes, analyzing every frame of the match against Mask. He broke down every millisecond, Mask's starting explosion, the exact angle of his wrist press, the way he transferred power from his lats. He wasn't just studying his opponent. He was performing an autopsy on his own defeat. His conclusion was brutal and honest. He wasn't just weaker. He was fundamentally outmatched in every physical metric. To win, he couldn't just get stronger. He had to evolve into a different species of athlete. His training philosophy changed from a passion to a cold, hard science. The Forge of Strength was now open 24/7. First, he attacked the root of his failure, his hand and wrist. He knew Mask had crushed his hand with contemptuous ease. So Ermes began a series of brutal, medieval-looking exercises. He wasn't just doing wrist curls, he was isolating every tiny muscle and ligament. He worked pronation, supination, ulnar and radial deviation with heavy, customized handles attached to cables, fighting for every inch. He would hold excruciating, static holds until his entire arm was shaking uncontrollably, pushing past pain into a new territory of neurological adaptation. He filled buckets with rice and twisted his hands until his forearms felt like they were on fire, building tendon strength that no machine could replicate. He bought every hand gripper he could find, from entry-level to ones that could barely be closed by world record powerlifters, and he worked them relentlessly. At home, while watching film, even while eating. His hands were becoming instruments of immense crushing power. Next was the engine room, his back and lats. He understood that in arm wrestling, the arm is just the delivery system. The true power comes from the back. He abandoned vanity workouts and focused on pure functional power. His main exercises became incredibly heavy partial rep rows, weighted pull-ups that would make a Marine cry, and single-arm cable rows designed to perfectly mimic the pulling motion at the table. He would load the pin on the weight stack, then add plates on top, pushing the machines far beyond their intended limits. He wasn't building a body for the beach. He was building the chassis for a war machine, a solid foundation of power that would anchor him to the table. Then came the direct weapons, his bicep and brachialis. He realized his defensive hook had crumbled, so he worked his bicep from every conceivable angle, with a focus on heavy eccentric movements, the lowering portion of the lift, training his arm to absorb an opponent's hit without breaking. He did inhumanly heavy partial curls in the exact range of motion he needed at the arm wrestling table. His training partners would watch in awe as he'd load a barbell with a weight he couldn't possibly curl fully, and then, using his body, get it into the locked position and fight its descent for 10 agonizing seconds. This wasn't for show. This was programming his arm to become an unbreakable shield. But raw strength was useless without application. The laboratory was his arm wrestling table. Twice a week, he would have a rotation of Italy's best pullers come to his home for one reason: to destroy him. He didn't train to win these sessions. He trained to lose in specific positions. He would intentionally put himself in the bad positions he'd faced against Mask and learn to fight his way out. He used thick rubber bands to add resistance, forcing his body to recruit more muscle fibers. He was building not just strength, but muscle memory forged in fire. He was teaching his body to react instinctively, to counter Mask's signature press before it even began. This physical war machine needed high-octane fuel. His kitchen became a nutritional command center. He worked with sports scientists to craft a diet of immense precision and volume. We're talking 6, 7, even 8,000 calories a day, every single day. But it wasn't dirty bulk. It was a clean, calculated intake of lean protein, complex carbohydrates, and healthy fats, timed perfectly around his workouts to maximize muscle synthesis. Eating became a chore, a third training session. He would force-feed himself chicken breasts and rice when he wasn't hungry, drink protein shakes in the middle of the night, all in the relentless pursuit of mass and recovery. He sacrificed every culinary pleasure for the sake of his goal. Finally, there was the most important and most overlooked weapon: recovery. Ermes treated sleep like a sacred ritual. His bedroom was a hibernation cave. Blackout curtains, a specific cool temperature, no screens for an hour before bed. He understood that training breaks the body down, but sleep is what rebuilds it stronger than before. It was in these quiet hours of deep, uninterrupted sleep that the true magic was happening. His central nervous system was recovering from the brutal workouts. His muscle fibers were repairing and growing thicker, and his hormones were optimizing for growth. Months bled into a year, then 2. The transformation was staggering. His body became a living testament to his obsession. His clothes no longer fit, his neck thickened, his back widened, and his forearm, it became a thing of legend. It was no longer just a part of his body. It was a statement, a grotesque, beautiful piece of human engineering, packed with dense, granite-hard muscle and wrapped in a roadmap of thick veins that pulsed with power. It was a weapon, forged through 2 years of unimaginable pain, discipline, and sacrifice. The boyish ambition in his eyes was gone, replaced by the cold, patient focus of a predator who has been tracking his prey for a very, very long time. He hadn't just gotten bigger, he had remade himself, cell by cell, into the very monster he needed to become to win. The year is 2021. The day of reckoning has arrived. Matt Mass stood at the table again, confident in his monstrous power, but he wasn't looking at the same man he defeated 2 years ago. He was looking at someone else. Someone with the cold, focused eyes of a machine built for one purpose: victory. The referee yelled, "Go!" The table shook from the immense pressure. Mask, just like before, unleashed his signature fury. But this time, his power hit a wall of solid rock. Ermes didn't just hold the line, he absorbed the hit. A flicker of shock, then understanding, crossed the Canadian's face. He was in a war with a different animal now. And then Ermes answered. Powerfully, confidently, irresistibly, he drove the Canadian's hand to the pad.